Hey YouTubers, today we're going to talk about the question everybody's wondering, are you smarter than AI? All right, so I'm going to address this question from three different perspectives. The first one that we'll look at is kind of like looking at and thinking about, is AI less smart than me or more smart than me, in terms of like if it was kind of a line and our intelligence were sort of like a height concept. We'll also consider, speed as opposed to capacity. And for the most part, I'm talking about, when I say AI, I'm talking about generative AI, the type of AI that any one of us could log into a software product and utilize today. Not the kind that Amazon's been using for years and years, and Google and Facebook, in order to serve up ads to us. So most people don't really have access to that. They can't really utilize it in their daily lives in order to accomplish a task, so to speak. So we'll look at a bar chart in terms of like how much could we potentially automate of any particular knowledge work job. And then we'll talk about the normal curve, the mean, and then the standard deviations away from the mean and what that looks like. So let's jump in. First, the speed of AI. And if you think about how fast a human thinks compared to how fast a computer is in order to process information, it's 30 million times faster. And that's just a given. We've been working with that for a while, and some computers are not quite that fast, but at the rate that AI is able to process information today, we're dealing with approximately 30 million times faster. But that's only speed. How many times can the computer actually get the right answer, or an answer that is good enough, or an answer that is as good as a human's? That's what we're talking about today. So we're talking about the capabilities of AI, not just the speed. So let's jump into this first way of kind of thinking about this. It's very conceptual. It's not this precision scientific method today. We're just thinking about this in these three different ways. And if you think about yourself as, potentially one of these little clay dolls here, I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence for sure, but the question of, are you smarter than AI? You can go ahead and put in the chat right now. Do you feel like definitely you're smarter than AI, or no, like AI is already way smarter than you, or it really depends on the topic? So go ahead and put that in the comments. I want your pre-answer. So you can even say at the beginning, my answer is yes, beginning no, or beginning it depends. And then I want to know after you finish the video if your answer changes. So let me know both of those. I'm very curious to have this conversation in the comments. So I think in 2022, before we had ChatGPT 3.5, if you were to ask, there was Jasper at that point, you might have looked at it and said, well, there's a few things that AI is really great at. Maybe it's beat the best chess masters in the world. Maybe it's, done some other impressive things. But in the vast majority of contexts, I am so much smarter than AI that it gives me no fear, no discomfort. Like, it's not even a question. It's way down there. It's like, it's like, are you smarter than a dog? Well, you don't ever have to even think about dogs becoming smarter than humans, at least not in the next million years, right? So that's kind of how I think I was thinking about AI in 2022. And then 2023 came along and it was like, oh wow, this ChatGPT 3.5 came out, and or maybe in the end of 2022, right? But started to become really, really popular in the beginning of 2023, and it was like, oh wow, there's this amazing product, right? And it came out and it was like, it was able to do a lot of things, but still it was like, well, but still like, my teenagers might still be smarter than 3.5 in most ways. It's making a lot of mistakes. At this point, it wasn't passing the bar exam or the CPA exam or the medical boards, and it was like not really a threat, I think, in terms of like, oh, is this thing smarter than us? No, it wasn't really an issue. Then, as things continued, now we're at this point. We've got ChatGPT 4.0, and we've got Claude Sonnet 3.5, and we've got these other models, Llama 3.1, 405B. We've got Grok 2 with X, Elon Musk's model, and with the advanced prompt engineering that we have now, it is really, really good. And I think that it's getting to the point where if it had the context, if it had all the information that you have for the decisions that you make. For example, let's say you had five phone calls with a client or video chats or whatever with the client. You've had that experience, and then you're trying to craft a message to the client or create a proposal for the client. And does does the Gen AI have access to those transcripts, or does it not? Because if it doesn't, then we really couldn't compare the smartness, right? The intelligence. That wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be an apples to apples comparison. It would be like, well, I'm going to play chess, but I can see the whole board, and the AI can only see half the board. Like that really wouldn't be a fair competition. But so my assumption here is that it has all of the information, all of the data that you have. How smart is it then? And I think this is about where we are right now, where in most areas, Gen AI is smarter than most of us, given that it has all the right information, and that the prompt engineering is efficient. So I'll just do a couple more clicks here. So what happens then when it's smarter than any of us? What happens maybe in the coming couple of years as ChatGPT, as Claude, as Llama, and Grok, and all the others get even smarter than us, as they're clearly more intelligent than humans? What will that be like? And I want to do a video on that later, but I want to plant that seed and get you thinking about it, because I think there's a lot of really cool questions, and that is where we're headed. And the vast majority of people that I read about who are talking about this, they're talking about this, um, the red line basically going all above all of our heads. That is a when question, not an if question. So if you've heard, oh, that's just sci-fi, or that's just hype, that's no longer the case. I think crypto was maybe mostly hype, and I think there are still some definitely going to be some use cases for it, but in the end, there just wasn't the applicability there that Gen AI has in all of our lives. So as you think about this, think about the when. Okay, when it will become smarter than all of us, and I just want to plant that seed for a future video. But let's go on to the second way of thinking about this. So I have this bar chart, right? So in 2022, I think that the opportunity to automate, or in other words, the capability of AI was perhaps at 1% ish, maybe less, that it could automate for us. So there was a tool called Jasper. I think it might have been running on ChatGPT 2, if I'm not mistaken. And it was like, oh, like this is helpful for some things if you're pretty good at prompting it. But I think it was used for a lot of kind of junky, really spammy websites that not many intelligent people would want to visit. It's just kind of fluffing around about a topic and overly wordy, and it's like, okay, well, maybe that works for some SEO here and there, but there weren't a lot of real life use cases for it. Then ChatGPT came out, the ChatGPT 3.5 at the end of that year, and it was like, oh wow, this does some things, and it got really popular in the beginning of 2023, over a million users. It was just crazy. I think that might have even happened in 2022, but it became immensely popular in 2023, and people realized, oh my goodness, and they started learning how to use prompt engineering effectively, and it could just do so much. And I think that still, though, there was maybe an opportunity to automate maybe 5% of knowledge work at that time. Like if you take the average knowledge work job, that maybe you were able to automate 5% of it. But this year, I think it's closer to 17%, and certainly more for a lot of positions. I hear for coders, there's a lot of research and surveys. How much more work are you able to do? And I've heard minimum 40% more work able to be done with Gen AI for a coder than when not using it. And so that's just one example, but of way more than 17%. So I think it's conservative, but I'm just kind of drawing a line here, just conceptually, to think, okay, well, if your job has anything to do with writing communications, if you're writing content for marketing, content for designing training materials, content for telling people about your products, writing anything for legal purposes. If you're writing, if you're involved in coding for medical purposes, if your work has anything to do with transcription or translation, if you are doing artwork or concepting for videos, if there's all these, goes on and on. If you have any kind of if you work with numbers, you do any kind of analysis with Excel or tables, or if you spend much time writing emails, or reading emails, there's a massive amount of automation that you can do, and I think 17% is pretty conservative as a baseline low hanging fruit this year. I think it's like, if you were to set a benchmark goal, I think it's 10% this year and 20% this year. So I want to do another video on that kind of like baseline goals strategy for your organization in terms of knowledge work. But if you kind of follow these numbers here, these are basically historical. It's like what we're seeing companies do this, and we're seeing reports and surveys that are even greater than that, and we're seeing all kinds of use cases of saving thousands of hours on this task and thousands of hours on that task. It's phenomenal. So I think that with the continued progress that's being made, and of course you see every once in a while some flamboyant person who's just trying to get attention, and they're like, oh, like AI can't possibly continue to progress. And it's like, well, you're kind of a drop in the ocean of people who are like, here's the evidence why this will continue, and here's the next version, ChatGPT 5, being demoed for all of the intelligence agencies of the United States, and here's how the chips are getting faster, and here's how we're able to do so much more with less training data, things like that. So we're also getting better at prompt engineering. There's a model that came out recently, and it was like, oh, this model's better than any model. It scored better on all the benchmarks, and come to find out, it was just Llama 3.1, and they had told it to just think through the steps and then reflect on its original answer. And you can do that with any model. And so it was like, well, basically what they showed was you can have a better outcome, a smarter, more intelligent outcome, a higher quality of a response just by in the way that you prompt it. And there's lots of tools that you can use, and I've shown them on this channel. I'll probably show them again soon, for stringing together multiple nodes of agents that can check each other's work and come up with, if you have three of them coming up with 10 ideas each, and then two of them grading those ideas, and one of them pulling the best of those. And then, you can have another quality check that says, hey, is this idea really better than any of these? And yes or no, and then it flags you a green light. Like, there's ways to decrease hallucinations, there's ways to increase the quality up the wazoo. And so if you give it a few more seconds to compute, you can increase the quality and automate that whole process in ways that we really couldn't have imagined in 2023, I think. So I guess the the makers of those type of software definitely imagined it, and then they built it. But most of us, it's kind of a new thing. Oh wow, we can string these things together. And I've heard this thing called a swarm of agents or a crew of agents. So it's pretty amazing, and I think that we'll only get better at doing those things. Even if the models didn't get any better, we would still find ways to string them together and make even more opportunity to automate. So this is the normal curve. So this is the third way I want to show you how this works. And so if you've never seen a normal curve before, it's just talking about if you've ever heard the term standard deviations. But basically, think of this as, if you're not a statistics person, don't let this scare you. It's just, this is the mean or the average, and it says most people are around average in a thing. So if you take the hair length, or how fast people run, or eyesight, or how much people make, or their height, whatever it is, most people are around average. 34% is within one standard deviation. And I think if we just look at speed of AI, we talked about 30 million times faster, right? And when it's generating text or numbers or analysis, or when it's thinking through something and solving a problem for you, it may not go 30 million times faster, but it may not appear that it is, but in the background, it's doing a lot more work. And so the result may not appear to be 30 million times faster than a human could do it, could create that result. But if a human had to go through all of the thinking responsible for it, then I think that's about where that comes in. So, and again, that's like one situation in which that number occurs. But regardless of all those disclaimers that I'm giving, I think that AI, only the slowest AI, is slower than the fastest humans, right? And so, of course, if you take a large AI model and instead of running it on supercomputers like they typically do, if you were to try and run that on a laptop, or a home computer, even like that's a tower, like it's going to be slower than it normally would. So I'm not necessarily talking about if you put AI in the worst conditions. I'm talking about if you run AI on its intended, supercomputers compared to the human brain. So that's kind of the comparison when I think about speed. But this is to contrast it with the quality, right? Because it's different. It's a different situation when it comes to quality. And actually, I put 2027 on here, but I think this is actually right now. So that's a mistake. This should say now, and that the speed there's already this huge difference now. So let's continue. So this looks super busy, and I apologize for that. But just before we go into a little bit more detail here, if you were to take the least intelligent humans, so maybe this is children who are 3 and under, or something like that, and that's not the value of children 3 and under. We don't love children 3 and under because they're as intelligent as an adult. We love a child 3 and under because they're a human being, and they're cute, and we value the youth, right? They have potential, but they're inherently valuable to us. So I'm not saying that anyone's less valuable, and it's very important to me. I'm not saying anyone is less valuable or less likable because of their intelligence being lesser. But actually, just a side note, the more intelligent people are, and especially as they're more than 2 standard deviations higher than the average, we actually find that they become less likable because they're the smartest one in the room, and they often have a harder time fitting in without putting people down. And so that's something that is a particular struggle for extremely smart humans. So that's just my side note there. But so this statement is probably not scientifically precise, but I think that it's roughly the concept is roughly correct. So Gen AI today is smarter than 2.4% of humans in all contexts. The next one, Gen AI is smarter than 16% of humans in almost all contexts. This is the people who are more than a standard deviation lower than the average, and that's 16% of humans. And I think that the Gen AI is probably there. So now take the average and the people who are right around the average. I would say Gen AI is smarter than the average human. People are roughly average intelligence. I would say that Gen AI is smarter than the average human at most things. And that's, again, the caveat is that they are having the all of the information and data that the human has in order to make a decision and respond in that context. So this says that Gen AI is smarter than 84% of the humans in many things. So this is like, now we're talking about this whole group here is 84% of the humans. So basically, we're saying Gen AI is smarter than most humans in many things, and then Gen AI is smarter than 98% of the humans in some things. So the smartest humans here, that Gen AI is still smarter than them in some things. And so if you think about the vast variety of things that there are in the world, let's say that plant biology, like is Gen AI smarter than you in plant biology? If Claude Sonnet 3.5 wrote an essay on the plant biology of how roots interact with soil. Would you, who would come out ahead in that one? Certainly, I would come out behind in that one, right? How about semiconductors? If ChatGPT wrote a 2,000-word essay on the science of semiconductors and the recent improvements there, like who would win? Like, I can barely tell you what a semiconductor is, so it's going to win in that case. Like, now if it had all the data that you have, let's say that you're talking about how to navigate through your house. Well, if you give it the data, like, it's going to know just as well as you how to navigate through your house. And in fact, if you go to a popular place, let's say that we're talking about the way to work, you actually rely on AI when there's a lot of traffic, or there's road construction, or there's weather, that you ask it, oh, what's the fastest way to work, and it calculates it for you. So even driving to work, a route, a general direction that you've traveled hundreds of times, you might still ask AI, hey, what's faster today? Because again, it has more information and it can calculate that better than you can. And if you think about all the topics like that, cancer of the thyroid, the molecular nature of glass, there's a lot of things that it's smarter than most humans in, right? So if you think about, there's so many things to know, so many topic areas, that's a lot of information, and the amount of analysis that it can do, which I've showed you, just scratch the surface on this channel, but stay tuned for more. Like, this is a very interesting way to think about it. So let's say we have the average human here, which doesn't exist, by the way. We're all wonderfully unique. But if we have the mean human here, and then we have in 2024, the average AI, I think is more intelligent. So if more intelligence on the left, I think that average AI is substantially smarter than the average human. And that's assuming, again, that it has all of the same context. So I think next year it's going to, obviously the gap is going to broaden if things continue the way that we've seen. And almost every indication indicates that. I won't say that every single card is laying in that direction, but that's the way that I would say almost all indicators lie. And then if oh, I don't know why I'm moving backwards now. And then, if that continues 2025, 2026, 2027, then you look at the gap there, like, it's huge. Then only the dumbest AI is dumber than the smartest humans. So back to my original question, are you smarter than AI? And I don't want to make anyone feel bad here, but I went through a process, kind of a struggle, about a year ago. And when I realized, oh my goodness, in some areas of my job, the work that I've been doing for more than a decade, Gen AI is much smarter than me, or at least it's much faster. And so I should probably start using it. I went through this kind of existential struggle. It was very emotional, thinking, oh my goodness, this is a computer. This is a machine that's better at my job than I am in certain ways. And it was quite a struggle, but this might have happened for you a long time ago. It may have yet to occur, but I'm really curious in the comments, like, where are you at? Is AI smarter than you? Yes, no, or it depends on the topic. I hope this helps you work through the process of realizing how valuable this can be in your work life and even in your personal life, to help you think through things and accomplish tasks. Whenever we hand things over and delegate to Gen AI, I think it allows us to take a breath, take a moment to realize we're saving time, we're being more efficient, and we're able to have a little more mental space in our lives. I hope that we're able to use these tools to make better lives for all of us. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.